the one that actually has worked the most for me the past while is ketamine therapy, legal ketamine therapy. And two things. It has really worked to dissolve an egoic mind, my egoic mind. You know, one of the things about having a life with a lot of trauma is, and the fight or flight we're talking about, is you can be really set in your ways and you can be rigid and you can hold on to your beliefs because you're trying to squeeze them to survive all the time. And when you try to think that things are going to get better, then what happens is the mind pops in and goes, well, it didn't get better last time. And what about this? And you remember this person let you down. And it constantly kind of does that loop, that destructive loop that people get stuck in. Mm-hmm. So for me, in terms of actual healing, I did ketamine for a short period, about 2 months. It was an amazing experience. I did very high doses. I did what they said was, and I think I just have the mind for it. Like I said, I do 6 grams of mushrooms and I could probably do 7. I did the highest legal dose. I remember at a certain point, I completely disassociated out of my body. I was floating completely out of my body. I couldn't feel the back of my body. And I was moving sort of through different kind of areas. At a certain point, I was almost like above the table where it was happening. I was just kind of looking down at myself, same way that people speak about in a near-death experience or when they do DMT. And that was interesting. And then what really freaked me out in this whole experience was what flashed before me was that previous life that was discussed about, where I was a female healer. I kind of came to in the middle of a village, and there were women carrying baskets with a bunch of fruit. And I looked down and I saw these little feet in the sand. They looked like little girl feet. And what really struck me at that moment was the most intense deja vu I've had, which sort of felt like, oh, I've been here and oh my God, I'm home. I remember this. I haven't been able to tap into that past life of the musician, you know, that would be living through the 80s or whatnot. I haven't tapped into that one, but there's something about the ketamine that allows a dissociative state that allowed me to not only just leave the body and move my consciousness, but also visit these past lives in pretty vivid detail. I mean, it was only for about 5 seconds, but I saw it, and then I sort of snapped back into my body, like directly down, and I was back on Earth, let's say.
Wow. Yeah. Have you had your Akashic records read?
No, but I've read my Dharma, but I haven't read that.
Yeah, I had a reading done, and it was, it put me, I had shivers up and down. A lot of it made sense. I don't need to go into all the details, but apparently I lived a life in isolation. And the reason for this podcast, mushrooms saved me from alcohol, essentially, but it really kind of helped. I feel like I've always had a need for escapism. So it kind of put a name behind that. And true or not, it just, for me, it's more maybe knowledge. But I believe it's helped me to kind of identify some of my behaviors just by understanding some of this inherited things, shall we say, that we come into this life with.
And also, you know, it's not only, it's your ancestral trauma. We talk about, you know, I had a woman that was a pretty advanced spiritual healer. She said to me, where do you think your phobias come from? Where do you think these irrational fears that you have of like mice and snakes when you've never had an experience with them? So she said that was past life. And then she also sort of said that, you know, we don't talk about, she told me this really interesting experiment. We talk about ancestral trauma, you know, what's in our DNA, what are we born with, what, you know, we feel the pain of our ancestors. And she was talking about this experiment. What they did was they took mice and they shocked them. And every time they shocked them, they would give them the smell of cherry blossoms. And they did that for a while. And then the mice had babies. And immediately once the babies were born, they took the babies and they moved them away from them so as not to interfere with the experiment. And they noted that when they would go up to the babies, they would just wave cherry blossoms in front of their face. The parts of their brain that were associated with fear would light up like crazy. So we're passing things through generations that we don't even realize, and you know, we've got a lot of work to do. It's a full-time job.